Manasastu para buddhirya. Superior to the body. Also, just earth, water, fire, air, ether. All of the body is made of that. They're superior. So the body is also an inert object. Inert. Because what happens when the soul, but we actually have two different bodies, and those two different bodies, one of them is changing every single death, birth and death. The gross body, the physical body, that has changed. But the other body, the subtle body, right? That subtle body, Sukshma Sharir, it's called. What subtle, but of the gross five elements. They're made of that, but the mind is not. And is controlled. Is controlling the senses. You know, we've all seen the painting in the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, the horse.
There's a painting that is depicting actually what we're discussing here. A chariot not stopping. So this is showing this that the Jivatma is in the material world. Right? Yes, every one of us. We are in a chariot. The chariot, right? We are the soul. We have actually no real in the hands of who? The driver. But what are the reins of the horses? The mind. And what is the driver? The intelligence. Doesn't really depict the false ego. In some way it does. Because the passenger, meaning the Atma, is free identifying with the body. Yeah. So this, now in Western society, they have no idea of this. But there are these different mechanisms, these different particular divisions of the self. They don't know that. And they think we are nothing but this gross physical body. And all the reactions that are going on in the gross brain inside of our skull gives us the sense of identity. That sense of, oh, I'm such and such. Memory, identity, all of that. They think that it's only chemical reactions. This is the atheistic version in the brain. And there is no other identity. And of course, this kind of ignorance, temperament, denying the existence of God, any higher subtle forces of the universe, controller of the universe, they just don't have any belief in that at all. And so the whole Western, it leads to nothing but suffering. And first of all, already in a suffering condition, having this material body, because it's destined for what? It is destined to become your body, as Prabhupada used to say, which you're soaping so nicely in the shower. What will happen to it? Three things, three possibilities will happen to it.
Ashes, stool, and what's the other one?
Earth.
Earth.
Yeah. If it's buried, like most Christians and Muslims and so forth, burying. And what happens to it? It gets eaten by worms that are in the earth, right? And so then stool, or like vultures. If somebody dies in the middle of the wilderness, and then the birds and the animals, they come and they eat your body. Your body becomes stool. His body by some process in long lines to go and see Lenin. It's like seeing Hiranyakashipu. I mean, I didn't go. I didn't even bother to go. But then what? It'll become like that. So Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna is informing us about all of the important tattva, And without understanding this tattva, no one's life can be successful at all. It will be a complete failure. They come to the human form. They have a belief. There's something after death, right? They have some belief. More belief or less. Weaker. But they believe like this, because in the scriptures, they are taught like that you will go live in heaven or in hell. Now that's a hard, tough one. Forever in hell. But yet, they're teaching that.
It'll seem like that.
Huh?
It'll seem like you're in hell.
Huh? You mean about when you're going to the punishment of Yamaraj, natural form. Therefore, it is mentioned in the Shruti, person, bodha, intelligent, because the intelligence is, someone becomes self-realized, they're bodha, they're pure, they're intelligence. The pure is merely a function of the soul, who is a minute particle of spirit. Soul is scorns objects and honors spiritual objects. It is material objects and honors spiritual objects. I'm reading that sentence again. At that time, which time? When the living entity understands the pure particle of existence. That's why to put any clothing at all. Srila Gurudev told. Such an transcendental, exalted soul. This body is a cover. Covering over a covering. I need to put it. They become subordinate and controlled. The mind then regulates the senses and brings them under it, because now it's under the control. The mind branches on the senses. Indra. Now the next little section says means to restrain the senses. What are the means to restrain the senses? The paths of dry and dry renunciation cannot control the senses. You know what he's talking about? Shushka. Vairagya, Falgu Vairagya. So they cannot, where they do, withdraw and restrict their senses, but the taste for it still remains. A person whose intelligence is fixed, however, he has realized Paramatma, and therefore his taste for sense objects withdrawn is by that used to be an important verse for us in the early days, because our philosophy was so much emphasized in that way by God, that the style that he had arranged for his devoted disciples in the Krishna consciousness, such a lifestyle that they would be immersed in the activities of bhakti. Restraint. So it goes on. He says, those who refrain from accepting objects through the senses, refrain. I'm just going to do my meditation. I'm going to be aloof. So those who refrain from accepting objects through the senses, they only give up the objects themselves, but they are not free from the desire for them. But higher than the pleasure of enjoying sense objects is the trans. In the very beginning of this section, this chapter, what does lolya mean? Restlessness. That's the term being used. It also means greed. It also means, but in hand clasp, like this. This will never bring purification, whereby sense objects. He said the pleasure of enjoying is the transcendental pleasure of being so much higher. Stages of trying to perform bhakti yoga under the guidance of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, even in the beginning stages, there is a superior happiness.